You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly. You have successfully joined the webcast. Please stand by. The meeting will begin shortly.
Good afternoon. I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the USA Niagara Development Corporation for Monday, July 31st, 2023. I'd like to note for the record that this meeting is being webcast. I will also note for the record that the public was given the opportunity to comment on the agenda items by submitting their written comments by 4:30 p.m. on Thursday. I'd like to further note for the record that no comments were received from the public concerning today's agenda items. The directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I'd like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to the items on the agenda. If so, I'd like to ask you to please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. We will then be sure that you may recuse yourself from any discussion or vote regarding such item. Hearing none. Our first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the March 20th, 2023 Directors Board meeting. Are there any questions, comments, additions, or deletions to the minutes of the March meeting? May I have a motion for approval?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No response. Anthony Velardo, President of USA Niagara Development Corporation, will now present the USAN's President's Report for informational purposes only. No vote is required. Anthony.
Thank you, Chairwoman, Directors. It's lovely to be here with you today. I'd also like to welcome Mr. Gary Seidel, the President of the Aquarium of Niagara, who will be joining us for the later item. To give you an update where we are at the project at First and Fall Street. We are awaiting their application to HCR for funding. They're also likely to be accepted to the Brownfield Cleanup Program on that project. We are currently designing the demolition of the Native Center, which we anticipate to be done by the end of this year, with demolition targeted for the first quarter of 2024. In line with that, we are also working to design an interim use for the side along Old Fall Street for next summer. So when we get the tourists in town, it's not just a barren pile of gravel. At 441 3rd Street, which is the last of the buildings, which was part of the Strategic Land Acquisition Program that we've not yet disposed of. One of the issues we encountered in enticing the private sector and looking at that building was the roof. So we are currently at 60% design on the roof. And it's been submitted to ESD's internal design and construction team for comments, which they have submitted back to the architect of record on that project. Slightly outside of our development district, but a project we are working on under the Regional Revitalization Partnership is the city market. A consultant has been selected to lead that. Market Ventures was selected by a consultant, by a team of scores from our agency, ESD, the City of Niagara Falls, and Philanthropy. We're looking to kick that off in the fall once that contract makes its way through the ESD procurement process. Also part of the Regional Revitalization Partnership, the Small Business Development Fund, which will allow us access to small business development grants within our district, along with targeted corridors in the City of Niagara Falls along Pine Avenue, Portage Road, and a portion of Main Street between Portage and 4th. A consultant has been selected to lead that on the city side of things, and we are awaiting the NFC Development Corporation, the city's economic development arm, to award, to finalize that contract so that consultant can be brought on board. I'd like to welcome Mayor Steino. Thank you for being with us today. No, you're right on time. And lastly, give you an update where we are with operations at the Convention Center and Old Fall Street. Despite the inclement weather, we've had a great summer. This past weekend, we hosted the Ride for Roswell, the Empire State Ride, which drew a large number of attendees downtown. Our Friday night concert series have been well attended. We have had a lot of locals participating in that, coming down and taking advantage of those free shows, which we're excited about. And we are on track to have an excellent Blues and Oktoberfest in the month of September, which are typically two of our larger events on the street. And inside the building, I'm pleased to report, staff there is informing me we are at 52% over 2022's numbers for the summer months. Typically, the summers are more difficult for us to sell in that building, given the influx of tourists, which drive up the revenue at the RevPAR at the hotels. But we've been able to mitigate that and had some nice working relationships with the hotels and driving conventions in the summer, which has been, hopefully good for the marketplace. So, with that, I'd like to have our senior project manager, Paul Ray, walk you through a little bit of where we are with our Niagara Falls Heritage Gateways, which you had previously approved design funding for. So, Paul?
Thanks. So, as Anthony said, back in, I think it was November, you approved a contract for us to start designing what we're calling the Niagara Falls Heritage Gateways. These kind of have three functions. Back in 2021, we released our development strategy to decide what to do with all the properties that we own. And some of the things that came out of that development strategy were these ideas to build gateways and public investment on our properties. So that would do three things. It would help bring some new activity to the sites and then hopefully spur some more private development on those sites. And also it would bring more people from the park kind of into downtown. So kind of blurring the line between the park and our properties and the urban core. And we'll kind of see how some of that plays out. Now we have a series, maybe I get ahead of myself. We have a series of these. We have probably about 3 of these heritage gateways. I'm only going to talk to you about one right now because this one's about the most cooked we have so far is about a third through the design process. So it's a good time to talk about it. The other ones will follow. We'll come back to tell you about those as we progress. So where this is our main, kind of our biggest site that we have here. You have the state park, and this is in between 1st and 2nd Street, and Main Street kind of goes right through the middle of that site. So we're calling this one heritage gateway, even though it's 2 distinct sites, I'd say. The one thing that we want to do with these heritage gateways is interpret heritage, what used to be on those sites. Nothing's there anymore, so we want to bring some of that stuff back to life. So that's why we're kind of showing you a little bit about the canal, because the canal is the big thing on this site that used to be there, and it's not there, it's filled in. If everyone knows the history of the canal, you can see a little bit what the canal used to look like. It went right through our site. Actually, this is a proposed, it ended up kind of going like that. I'll show you a little more. Rotating a little bit more now. So now we have Main Street here. North is going that way. You can see the canal came right through the site, And then we had these train tracks as well. So it was an industrial site. So we want to bring some of that back. It's not going to be an industrial site. It will be mixed use and a park setting. But we want to give people a little understanding of what used to be on the site. So here's the site today, completely cleared. This side, the northwestern side, is DeFranco Park. So it's a city-owned property. We own this little piece here, and then we own all of this. You can kind of see how the canal used to run right through there, about 100 feet right away, right through there. And importantly, Niagara Falls State Park is right here. So how do we get people to come out of the park and into the city and spend money at local businesses and enjoy all the amenities that are in the city? Here is our plan, kind of 1,000-foot view plan. For right now, we're kind of calling these two things gorge and the canal side. We'll probably come up with an overall name of this whole thing at some point. So we still need to workshop that, I think. So this will get developed as public improvement. This canal will get developed as public improvement. And then the yellows will be working with private developers at some point to develop buildings there, mixed use buildings. So we're going from kind of more natural feeling in the park and the gorge, transitioning into the urban core. So that's the idea. How do you do this transition that feels like it's seamless and start to pull people out of the park? So this is for tourists, also for local residents as well. So here's what we have so far. This is kind of a grand overview of the two sites. You can see Main Street down the middle. This is kind of the gorge side. That's the canal side. I can kind of get into individual aspects of this as we zoom in more on the city side, the gorge side. We have the big piece of this is kind of a lawn in the center here and a multi-use pavilion. This is something we've been working with the city on. Mayor desired to kind of have a little gathering space there, a performance space there. So we're going to start designing this big lawn and a space, kind of a band shell type thing that can be multi-use. Someone's going to play, a band's going to play under it. It's going to be great. If nothing's there, then people can just use it for shade and hang out underneath it. We also have this tiered seating so people can sit on there and kind of get up a little bit to see the performance. So I can kind of go a little piece by piece here. So this is probably about the size, this picture on the left is probably about the size of what we're talking about. It's not gigantic, but it's enough to just have a band and have some people gather around it. And, people walking in and out of the park can find a band playing and then kind of stumble upon it. And if it's not there, they can still have lunch on the kind of tiered seating or in the lawn. We can set up tables. So I think it's pretty flexible as far as what we can do. Off to the north of that will be more of a woodland setting. So it's, it's just going to be kind of crushed stone paths, but you'll be walking through the woods, some meandering paths through the woods over there. And then the southern portion of the site, this is the lowest portion of the site. This is where we're going to kind of treat all the water, the runoff. It's all going to be treated on site. So we'll have more of a meadow feeling there. And it's similar to some of the meadows that they have in State Park right now. So it's kind of going to feel like it's part of the park. You won't know it's a different thing from the park. Then the thing that's going to kind of link these two together, if you remember those railroad tracks that used to run through both of the sites, we're going to kind of interpret that starting from here right now, all the way, and it's going to kind of wrap around here to Discovery Way, wrap around the lawn. We're calling this the railroad promenade. There's a couple of promenades you'll see when we're going through this design. This is really the linking thing. So we want to get people to kind of come out of the park, experience this, and then be able to cross the street here. So this would be a mid-block crossing. They can also cross here, but this is the main kind of like arterial to get between the two sites. And that'll bring you to the canal side, again, the more urban side. What we have on this side is an area in this kind of triangle thing here, an area to do temporary or seasonal ice skating. So during the winter, we could lay down an ice skating pad and ice skate. And then in the summer, it goes away and then you have a nice plaza to put up tables or anything like that. They've done similar things. I think this is Philadelphia. Obviously, canal side is more permanent. It won't be exactly like that. I forgot where these other examples are from.
I think Philadelphia.
This looks like Philly right here as well.
Yeah.
So during the summer, if you go there, it's just tables and stuff. But during the winter, it's a nice little skating pad.
There might be a Rotary rink in Buffalo. So
This is Rotary Rink here in Buffalo.
probably
A little similar, though. It's not going to look like an ice rink. Like you go to Rotary Rink, it looks like an ice rink. Like, it's not going to look like that. It's going to kind of blend into the surroundings in the summer. And then the big piece of this really is the canal. So how do we interpret the canal with a water feature? And this will be an interpretive, but also an interactive water feature, very similar to the one on the left here, where it's not standing water, but it's going to be these fountains where kids can go in and play and have fun, and it looks like something from a distance, pull you in. But it won't be standing water, so no lifeguards or anything like that. And that'll run the length of the canal here, from First Street to the corner of Main and First to all the way to Second Street. And then next to that is what we're calling the Power Promenade. These are just examples, obviously, at this point, but it'll be kind of an array of lights that run along the canal. And we really want to bring out the heritage with an interpretive kind of structures that would hold these things up. So we haven't designed those structures just yet, but there used to be these huge catenary structures that held up power lines next to the canal, if anyone knows that. So we want to take a look at that and see how we can make something kind of evoke those old structures that were there, but also bring some lighting and something interesting at night. And that's kind of back to the overview here. And you can see these are the buildings. Obviously, we haven't designed these yet. We're going to be working with future developers. We'll release requests for proposals on those and try to bring a mixed-use project with private developers. So we hope all of this, starts to entice some of those developers to come and build some of these mixed-use buildings. But in the meantime, it's just going to be a great amenity for the park goers, for people that live in the city to come down and start to bring people downtown just to hang out in these spaces. I think that might be it. If I didn't go too fast.
No, you're good.
No,
Okay.
very nice, thank you.
I can go back to that if you have any questions on it.
What's the timeline on this?
We hope to be working on this Heritage Gateway, this one that I'm presenting here. We would like to be done again, almost the same timeline as the demo across the street here. So we want to start construction next year, probably, I would say, in the summer sometime.
What's that take?
What's it take to get it done?
Yeah.
We're progressing through the design fairly quickly now, so these updates are going to really start ramping up, and you're going to start to have construction documents by the end of the year. So I think we're going to be on target for that.
And we've pressed the design team to say, okay, these, out of all the heritage gateways are all vitally important. But we feel that these two will have the greatest immediate impact on development.
Mhm.
So we're pushing them to get these ones done as soon as possible. So next summer we can have development there on a parallel path, issue an RFP for private development around those. We want to do, we think it'll be a little bit of a momentum.
Mhm.
Should that happen, like, hey, this is what we're building, right? The project is funded, we have design, come build your next project next to these.
Yeah, so we have funding in place to do the construction. We'll go fundraise for that. So we're ready to go. Once we get the construction documents, we'll go to bid.
What are you looking for in mixed use? Are we talking retail or?
Yeah, so thinking back to
Retail.
our development strategy, I mean, retail's great. Some component of housing,
Housing?
retail and housing, and if we get commercial space, that's probably the hardest to attract. We don't think we're there yet.
Mhm.
But I think it's certainly retail and some kind of component of housing is what we want. Yeah, and also cultural uses are, great,
Mhm.
things that complement the tourist district.
Things that, comprise the city, right?
Mhm.
Local history museum.
Mhm. Oh, you mean get it out of the library?
They would like that very much.
They would very
And
much.
have it, well, and I think
Space.
this feels like, if I interpret it, we're talking.
Yeah, and we've spoken to the mayor, previously on, the archives and local history piece of trying to do something like that, which we think would be something very special for the downtown area.
Mhm. Yeah.
The other thing, I don't think it necessarily works for this one, is perhaps.
I'm
for-
sorry, can you speak up?
Oh, sorry, is having some sort of science pathway. I know that there are federal grants for, and we were looking to have something like that on Wall Street, perhaps, was planetary, like showing how the ratio difference of planets and having like a walking path or something like that. I know it's not historical to Niagara Falls, but there are other science and
It really should be Tesla.
Tesla kind of a science pathway.
I don't think we've ever paid enough homage to power,
Yeah,
that's what the,
water and power.
maybe
and
the
like
Heritage Gateways, right, that's
Tesla.
part of
A different
the idea,
one
is
would
to tell
be-
that story,
yeah.
get people moving
Really?
downtown.
Yeah.
I don't think
There's
we've
one thing I
got
didn't
something we've never exploited to its full potential.
One thing I didn't mention, there is an educational component to this. We're gonna have what we're calling checkpoints, so it'll be a kind of a kiosk. That'll tell you what happened on the site, talk about power generation, everything that happened here with the falls, using it as a, power source. It's fascinating. So we're gonna try to tell people about that. We could also, potentially link to online sources as well.
Well, with the amphitheater type of location there, I can see, it seems like it's actually fairly large, like you could have,
1,400 people, I think, is their
Yeah.
engineering estimate on how many people you could have there. So,
right?
it could be, you're not gonna get Bruce Springsteen, but,
Something
maybe
hard
it's
park,
the
like-
Nerds Gone Wild and,
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
not big enough for our park, but bigger than playing on Old Fall Street type of thing, right?
Right.
So how can we get that next level, that missing piece in the entertainment piece of the pie there, right? But to Paul's point too is, on a Wednesday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon in June, you might not have a performance there, but you want it to be a space that, I can go and get lunch at, a restaurant on Third Street and go take it there and sit down and eat, or at, maybe the Niagara University Repository Theater can, do a performance and things
Wow.
like that, right?
I mean,
Things
it's
that are
true.
different.
But I'm thinking more like, okay, all of the fourth grades from Western New York come and they all do spring
Yep.
field trips here to go on the Made in the Mist. But if you have something that's more of a 1,400, there's not a place where a teacher could sit down with 20 kids. Like, okay, if you guys are all gonna be back there on the hill, where am I going to be? And if there are different interpretive kinds of things, you may wanna think of how do you make a small place and a large place, or flexible, functional?
Pass the note along. It's a good idea.
Like a corner of that could kind of go both ways, I think.
We also thought about how, weddings could use the space.
Oh, that's
Similar
nice,
kind
yeah.
of size.
The city rents out, Centennial Pavilion and, so there's two of them.
Yep.
The two at High Park, the,
Oasis.
the Oasis and the other ones, right? So, those pavilions there, so, maybe for, maybe not a picnic, but, a wedding, right? I want to overlook the gorge for this wedding, catering, all those things are components that we've challenged the design team to come up with.
So there's room for it.
Yes. And also the necessary, okay, you're gonna have a concert there, you need a certain amount of power. If you wanna have a wedding there, what does that look like under there from? How do you unload if you're gonna have it catered? Where is someone gonna drop off food and things like that? So those are all things that they're taking a look at, to try to get as much use out of a facility like this as possible.
Probably some way to block off the pathways in the back there. I'm sort of a little nervous about walking there at night.
You're saying don't block it off or?
No, block it so that in the evenings you may close that off. I can
Yeah.
see that that's not gonna be,
Yeah, from
Safe at night.
the Discovery Way, you're saying?
well,
Yeah, there will be lighting on site as well.
well, it's still, if it's
And that
dark.
building is the state park police as well.
Right near the barracks.
They'll hear you scream.
Yeah.
I skipped that whole part about, are there any questions or comments? Just weren't into
Oh, we
it, so-
just comment.
My apologies, board members. Where are we? Okay.
We should be at the end of the president's report.
Yeah, okay. But well, as an order, we don't have a council of public with regard, which item are we talking about, Anthony? I'm so sorry. Is this your activity report? No.
You're moving
Oh,
on.
here it is. Oh, I'm Anthony, I'm so sorry. My apologies, sir. Anthony is going to present, on today's agenda, an item that relates to a request for authorization to designate the Niagara Aquarium Foundation, Gary, I'm so sorry, as the preferred developer in connection with the Parkview Site Development Project. Anthony will present.
Thank you, Chairwoman. This project involves redevelopment of a multi-lot property located at 535 through 579 Second Street. The redevelopment of this property, a block from Niagara Falls State Park and Niagara Gorge, represents a unique opportunity to capitalize upon the continued revitalization of this iconic destination. The project proposal includes up to 31,000 square feet of programmable space comprising an outdoor play area, an aquatic habitat gallery, and a natural science exhibit that will interpret regional topics. A selection committee consisting of representatives from the USA Niagara, Empire State Development, Niagara Falls State Park, and the City of Niagara Falls reviewed responses to an RFP against evaluation criteria measuring various aspects of each proposal, including but not limited to the proposed purchase price for the property, the team's experience in undertaking similar projects, the quality of the development plan and the ability to complete a project in the most expeditious manner, and the quality and reasonableness of the financial plan and the extent to which each team proactively undertakes diversity practices in their work. The proposal from the Niagara Aquarium Foundation, also known as the Aquarium of Niagara, received the highest score from the selection committee and was determined to be the proposal that best met the evaluation criteria as stated in the request for proposal. The aquarium's proposal includes a 3-phase expansion featuring an interactive component that encourages outdoor play, an aquatic habitat gallery, and a natural science exhibit that would interpret regional topics. The proposed development would extend the aquarium's campus and build upon current efforts to program Niagara Falls State Park adjacent to Niagara Gorge Discovery Center. In total, the aquarium's proposes approximately 31,000 square feet of exhibit, gallery, and recreational space, and the project is estimated to cost approximately $18.8 million for all 3 phases. We're requesting that the directors today, 1, make a determination of responsibility with respect to the proposed preferred developer. 2, authorize the designation of the Aquarium of Niagara as a preferred developer for the Parkview Development Site project and take all related actions. Before I finish, we have some images here. And I'd also like to note in the room again, Gary Seidel, the Executive Director at the Aquarium of Niagara. So this is the first pass at, did you want to speak as we go through this?
Sure, I'd be happy to. First, I appreciate the opportunity to come before you all and talk about our project. We're obviously very excited about it. And a lot of the language that was just described and thinking about science is something we're also very interested in. And so what you're looking at here is a street perspective, a conceptual rendering off of 2nd Street facing towards the aquarium off to the left there. And what we have done in terms of advancing our conceptual design is really tried to embody the spirit of what's natural and what's native to the region. So you'll see even from an architectural design perspective, we've taken great lengths to make sure that it fits into sort of this cultural campus, the vibe and mentality that we are going to be providing a lot of those types of services along that corridor there. So we are not building, not planning to build a large box store type structure. There's a lot of glass, a lot of light, and certainly the ability to spell out into the parkway that you see to the right. So the development we have planned, the large structure there, will look at doing a few things. We'll look at achieving an enhancement to our visitor experience through concessions, through cafe service, through catering that can support a multi-building campus. We'll have some expanded retail and commercial space. And then one of the things that's most exciting to us is the opportunity for rotating and traveling exhibit space. And essentially what that will do is allow us to rotate on a regular basis, bringing in new cultural attractions that are symmetric to our mission, not necessarily redundant to just having aquatic collections and aquatic ecosystems represented, but rather really looking to see what's happening in the world, in the community, and bringing in exhibits periodically to freshen that space. There'll be an event space programmed on the 2nd story. You can see that terrace overlooking the gorge, the park, and the other developments that were discussed earlier today. So we're pretty excited about that opportunity. It will be the aquarium's largest indoor event gathering space, capacity for about 150 people. And we're pretty excited about that. Off to the right, you'll see what we're envisioning as a fully inclusive and accessible playground. So families, children with varying degrees of mobility, abilities, and developmental differences will be able to enjoy and appreciate this play structure. So the park itself, of course, has all sorts of great parkways and trails and opportunities to ride bikes and things like that. But, this is sort of a more condensed space to burn some calories and plan some of those structures. So we'll be working with our designer to further flush that out. But really looking at developing these parcels into a real enhancement to our visitor and guest experience and activating that whole corridor that comes off of the downtown district.
I think a few other images in here. If you want me to stop, I'll keep going. If you want me
Sure,
to stop.
feel free
No, I'd like to see them.
Supposed to be looking from like the aquarium parking lot back towards downtown. Same shot you first saw in the evening.
Sure. The way that the glass is sort of, you see that jagged sort of appearance there, the intent was to emulate the glacial formation of the region itself. So when you look at it, the way that glass is sort of coming through that corridor that cuts through the building is really intended to emulate and embody the spirit of the way that the region was formed. And certainly positioning ourselves as sort of the leader in the natural sciences, that felt like something that we were excited to celebrate.
I like the look.
It's a
Very
slick
exciting.
look. I mean, I can't take credit for the design, right? Sort of deal goes into it, but
Yeah.
working with Clark Patterson, Lee, our designer, they have a real knack for being creative.
Well, instead of jumping ahead, why don't I ask the directors if they have any questions or concerns regarding this item?
It all looks great.
Very impressive, Gary. I look forward to it. What's your time frame again, please?
Look at it moving quick. Certainly this meeting today is a big milestone for us.
Yeah.
But as we like to say, we're not known for our patience. We like to move quick. So hoping we can get things moving within the next 2 years to start moving people into the building.
Do you have a contractor in place?
Construction contractor? No, we were waiting for the outcome from today's meeting in order to take the next step for schematic design.
This will allow them now to continue their
Move
fundraising
forward.
efforts.
Right.
Appreciate it.
We do not have any comments from the public regarding this item, so if we may move forward with a motion for approval.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No, thank you, the motion carries and
Thank you.
congratulations.
Appreciate
Look
it.
forward to the updates. It'll be
Absolutely.
great. There being no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion adjourned.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Motion, meeting adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Mayor, for being here. Paul, for your presentation. Appreciate it all. Nice job. Just want to see the end results.
Do we have a name before the governor now for another director?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are we off?
Are we good?
We're good?